I don't know anything that you're talking about, but yeah, EC, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks as always for having me on.
Yeah, this is going to be an absolute blast. And Boz, how you doing, man?
I'm okay, Pat. It's just that slide into the holiday season. You know what I mean? I feel like everything comes to a head and everybody's running around like crazy. And so I'm doing my best to, I don't know, not contribute to that craziness, but still handle what I got to handle. You know
Are
what I'm
you
saying?
are you in the barn right now recording?
I am.
Is there heating and air conditioning in it? And if not, what's the temperature?
Oh, yeah, dude. We have all the amenities here: functioning plumbing, heating, cooling. No, none of that. It is. I don't know. It's not too bad today. It's probably like 50 degrees, so it's not bad.
Okay.
But it's beautiful, man. It's sunny today. It's like a perfect fall day, so I'll take it.
So this will probably post next week, but as we record this, it is November the 26th. So here in the US, tomorrow is Thanksgiving for those who celebrate it. EC, you're known a lot. You're known a lot for in the world of nutrition. Is it safe to
Mm,
say tomorrow calories don't count?
that's I agree with that. I think people should enjoy holidays and then focus on, I don't know, maybe the other 350 days of the year or so.
No, it's the
People,
one day.
people smarter than me, Pat, have pointed out that you can't get fat in a day.
I'm gonna try.
You can
I'm gonna
try, but
I'm gonna try. EC, do you have a favorite dish for tomorrow? Anything you're looking forward to?
Oh man, I don't think my mom is going to make it. I don't want to throw my mom under the bus here, but she makes a sausage stuffing with cranberries, and I just don't think it's happening this year because
Ooh,
it's just
um,
too involved, and
too
I guess I should
laborious.
have I should have taken it over, but I've also got some other things. Everybody starts nutrition on January 5th, so this time of year is a
yeah,
little
The
stressful. Yeah.
fifth, really?
it
Well,
worked out. I
that's
thought it used to
I'm
be the
sorry.
first.
That's the you are right, the first, but that's the first
Ah,
Monday in January this coming year. So whatever
Gotcha.
the
Okay,
first Monday is in January is a popular date for nutrition. So
that
this
makes
time of year
sense.
for me is a little hectic.
We're gonna go over my wife's in-laws, and my mother-in-law makes this dish, which is it masquerades as a side dish, but really it's a dessert. In all honesty, like
Mm,
the caloric density must be like Oreo cheesecake.
right.
It's made from sweet potatoes, but it's like some sweet potato casserole that has brown sugar
Hmm.
and cinnamon and caramelized something and like melted marshmallows. It should come out with the dessert, but it's served
Right.
as like, have some healthy
With the
potatoes in the
green
main dish.
beans.
And I will purposely limit all the other things on my plate to maximize that. It is Oh my good, I'm very much looking forward. I confirmed
yeah.
with her like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, "Hey, we gonna see this on Thanksgiving?" She's like, "Yes." I was like, all right,
Why
it's
you're
gonna be
showing
good."
up. I
Mhm.
love
That's
it.
the dishes that we didn't have growing up. That was like a south of the border delicacy. You know, once I moved down here to the United States, that's where things started getting kind of wild on TK. But hey, I got one too that I hadn't had. We had a little friendsgiving last night, which was Tuesday night. Some friends in the neighborhood just got together. It was actually really great. We had like a little potluck style Thanksgiving and a little campfire at the end. And got a friend from Kentucky who brought corn pudding, and I'd never heard of such a thing,
I've
but
never had it. I don't think I've heard of it.
it was pretty good. It's basically corn, creamed corn, egg. It's like a little souffle kind of thing, and like something else that I don't really know. But she said her grandmother used to make it with a ton of sugar, but she just makes it with the corn. And let me tell you, it's sweet enough with just the corn. I could not imagine adding more sweetener to that. It was pretty intense as it was. Um,
So
anyway,
we brought EC on for a specific purpose here. We'll get to that in a sec, but I'm going to do my housekeeping real quick. If you want to help support the program, go to verynoutrandom.com. Check out all the different cycles that we offer: body weight, barbell, conditioning. You'll have a blast. And then on the gym owner side of the house, gym owners, you got a lot to do. You got workout tracking, you got gym management, you got billing, and btwb now has an all-in-one solution, so you don't have to piecemeal all those things from different software platforms. So if you're a gym owner interested in the all-in-one, go to btwb.com. Okay, EC, I brought you on. Well, I'll let people know. Basically, this is like Boz and I's our favorite topic, which is
Mm.
menopause and just women's issues.
I'm somewhat of an expert, Pat. If you knew
uh, but this just seems to be like in the zeitgeist, and I got my wife's chirping in my ear the whole time. She's 45 right now, and maybe it's just that maybe our phones are listening to us too much or
Right.
whatnot. But it just seems like or the whole like premenopause, was it perimenopause, postmenopause, in menopause
Mhm.
kind of thing. Like it seems to be inundated. I'm seeing like advertisements more than I ever have seen, like between our shows on like Hulu or something like that, of like some pharmaceutical solution to what's ailing you and this, that, the other thing. And then on social media, so and so's changing their training because they either read this or got scared. They got scared into doing this or
Mhm.
scared into avoiding something. Or anyway, there seems to be a lot of noise out there, and we're going to try to hopefully just get some signal, since this is a subject I know that you've actually
Mhm.
addressed, and so that's the point of what we're
Mm.
doing today. And so
Yes.
it's there's a lot on the bone there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll not go into too much right away, although I am very tempted to, but I definitely agree with you. I think there's a lot of noise out there, and I think it's really unfortunate because I think there are some very real symptoms and some things that women need to understand, but I think for the most part, people are making it overcomplicated and actually making it more difficult for women. So I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah.
Well, to lay the groundwork, I know Boz probably has definitions of all these phases off the top of his head, but I went I went ahead and went to the good old AIs, and so I'm going to
Mm,
read what AI has to say to kind of lay the groundwork. And sometimes AI gives meaningful things, sometimes they're a bit off. So I know you actually just had a workshop on this very topic, so it's probably fresh in mind for you. But here's what it says. I wrote in, "What is menopause?" Says it is the permanent end of menstruation and fertility, defined as 12 consecutive months without a menstrual cycle. It is a natural biological process that marks the end of a woman's reproductive years. It is not a disease. Typically happens between ages 45 and 55, with the average maybe being 51 to 52. There are three stages: perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, and each have their own, you know, um, what happens, symptoms, and durations, if you will. So that seems to be, and I'll even hear, people. We've got people in my community in Linchpin in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, and every now and then a post will come up like, "Hey, I heard this. Should I be concerned about something? Should I modify what I'm doing?" And it just kind of
mm.
sounded like it would be a worthwhile topic for a show.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a couple things about that definition. One is menopause is actually a single date and time. It is the 12 months after that final period. But the way that we talk about it, women will often say like they're going through menopause, which isn't really possible because you don't go through a single date and time. But what
Oh,
they're
okay.
referring to is referring to going through the phase that's like the symptomatic phase. And it tends to be 3 to 7 years around that final period date. And what's really, I think, interesting about it is the symptoms can be quite varied, and the time at which it happens can be quite varied. So I think women can often feel quite alone because their friend group might not be experiencing at the same time that they are, and they also might have very, very different symptoms from their friend group. So this is what I think makes it a little bit, I don't know, like scary for women, or how they feel very isolated just because it's so varied, the length of time, the severity of symptoms when it happens. But anyway, just relative to your terminology, what we'll be talking about today is relevant to all of it. It doesn't matter if you're pre menopause, if you're kind of the 6 months after what you think might be the final period, like anything that's in the symptomatic period, late 40s into early 50s, what we're going to talk about today is relevant. And I'll probably describe it as going through menopause because that's how everybody talks about it.
The parlance of our times, if you will. And so I guess we can go in so many different directions, but I guess I have just a bunch of rather
Yeah,
straightforward questions that maybe we'll launch into other things. But I guess if we're addressing a lot of people in this audience, whatever, they could be just loving Olympic lifting, powerlifting, they're doing whatever, but a lot of them are going to be into CrossFit or into something that's very similar to that, but they call it a different name, whether you're
sure.
hybrid training, functional training, doing some sort of weird cosmonaut thing that I've never heard of before, like there's
Mhm.
something like that. Um, I'll hear some people say like, "Hey, now that I'm in this phase of life, I've read, heard, or seen something that says that now I should avoid intensity." Maybe we can start with
Mm,
something like that. Have you heard that? And if so, what's your
mhm.
your gut feeling?
It goes all over the map. You'll hear people that say, because of this time in my life, I'm supposed to avoid like moderate intensity cardio. You'll also hear exactly what you said. I'm supposed to
That's
avoid
very
intensity.
specific.
Yes.
Moderate intensity cardio.
Well, like zone 2, like I'm supposed
Gotcha,
to
okay.
avoid like the longer cardio pieces. Then you'll also hear what you've said. I'm supposed to avoid intensity. I'm supposed to avoid heavy lifting. I'm supposed to avoid going to failure. I'm supposed to avoid, lifting, but only in this rep range. I mean, all of this wacky stuff, and it's
100%.
completely wacky. What you need at 45 or 55 as a female is the same way to grow, increase bone density or increase muscle mass at 25, and also the same as if you were a man. And so this idea that we need to change our training specifically because of being a female or at a certain age, it's not true, and that people should not be avoiding things. And this is one of the things that really, really ruffles my feathers about the people who prey on this demographic is people need to be encouraged to exercise. I think you guys know that. I think the stat is something like 76% of Americans are not hitting the CDC guidelines for exercise. Cardiovascular disease is the top killer for women, beats out all forms of cancer combined. I think that's the same for men as well. So this idea that we're going to start now gatekeeping certain exercises, intensity levels, or whatever the heck it is like such a disservice to women. They're making it overly complicated and more inaccessible when the real message needs to be all exercise is better than none, and we need more consistency of all exercise. That needs to be like the front and center messaging. And after we get some consistency and intensity, then we can start thinking about maybe optimizing strength versus cardio, CrossFit, whatever periodization. But there still does not need to be any like, I'm not doing X, Y, and Z because I'm 45, 55, female, menopausal, et cetera.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I totally get that as a blanket recommendation on a population level. However, I don't know that that's convincing to the individual, especially, and I think this is something that comes up a lot when you have somebody who's already kind of invested in like CrossFit or whatever, training for a while. I think you've talked about this quite a bit, like this concept of the worried well, where you have somebody who is already deeper in than the average person, and therefore they have a greater proclivity to kind of seek out an answer, even if, and I don't mean to be obtuse about this, but it's like, I think a lot of times people look for a problem with, a solution in mind already. You know what I mean? And I'm just curious, like, yeah, how do you approach that with somebody who is, we're not talking population level now. Like, yeah, totally agree. Population level, yes, we got to encourage people to move around a lot more than they are already. To your point, the CDC guidelines, man, they're so minimal. And the fact that people aren't meeting those is like, it's pretty brutal. But how do you broach that topic with the individual who is probably already convinced on one track or another about what they're quote unquote supposed to do, in the face of all that information?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this is where I would want to address from like the menopause angle. I do think there are some very real changes and symptoms that are happening that do deserve potentially some empathy, especially if they're having like very severe hot flashes. If you're having these things where you feel like you've been in a furnace for 2 minutes, 10 times a day, like you're probably not going to be able to hit it quite as hard during Fran, right? And you're probably not sleeping very well, so you're probably tired. And there are things that come like, depression and anxiety. So a lot of times these things then are affecting their ability to get after it in the gym or to even make the right diet choices. And those symptoms are very real. But I think the way that I kind of approach it is trying to figure out like, what can we do today that, feels good or that you're ready for and that we can attack with some gusto, is just like how I would handle though for anybody. If I had a male come into me and who's clearly, I don't know, stressed out from work and hasn't slept, today might not be the day that we go for the 1 rep max deadlift. We might be like, okay, cool, let's hit reps of 3 that feel good, something heavy. And I think it can be the same approach for somebody when you're checking in with your clients to sort of gauge their readiness for training, if you will. I know that's a little bit, sounds like it came out of a textbook, but kind of gauge the readiness for training and figure out what can we do today within that context that is in line with something, getting after some cardiovascular fitness, getting after some strength, getting after some whatever it is, skill-based stuff, because I think there is some value that you can just sort of say there's still value to being able to get your heart rate up. Do you ever want to go on a hike with the family in a pack? Like there's still value in, lifting. Do you want to be able to pick up the groceries with ease and all of that stuff? So still convincing them that there are some adaptations that they want. And then let's just work within the context today that will meet your ability to, be intense within that realm.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, and maybe this is a little bit ignorant showing here, but to me, it very conceptually kind of echoes, the general idea around what people believed around training pregnant. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, you're in a delicate place. This is obviously something that you've got to be real careful around. And I mean, CrossFitters have really rewritten the book on that as
Mhm.
far as what people can and should be doing, even all the way up to giving birth. In a lot of cases,
Mhm.
you see some pretty miraculous things there. Do you think it's kind of the same mindset that the general population has had around menopause?
Yeah, I mean, I would treat it from a coaching perspective in that same vein of like you're just going to scale the individual for their needs that day, man, woman, whatever the stage of life it is. But I agree. I do think that the population has taken this attitude like, it's such a delicate time period of life. When in reality, there's some very real symptoms. We're going to have to deal with them. Not every day, again, is going to be the 1 rep max deadlift day, but it's not like this disease or something that we handle different from a diet and exercise front at all. And you're still going to want to do all the things that you would do with CrossFit for the adaptations that you know so well. It's like all of a sudden when you're 55, it's not like you don't want to be able to lift any weights.
Hmm.
You still want that for all the benefits that you wanted it at 35. I think the other thing that's hard for people is menopause. You cannot disentangle menopause from aging. They happen together. And there are very real effects of aging for men too. And
Sure.
there's a reason why 55-year-olds don't compete with 30-year-olds.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So oftentimes by the late 40s, 50s, there's all these other things that have changed in life in the sense of either family has gotten the front seat or career, or maybe wherever you are in your life, you also are now caring for older parents. So fitness has taken this back seat. Or the other thing that I find a lot with people in their 40s, 50s is some of the orthopedic issues from skiing or baseball or you name it have cropped up enough that they can't really go for that hard run anymore. They can't do as much overhead lifting. And so this is what's really eating away at maybe their fitness capacity. And guess what? We're still going to scale that for those needs at that time when they're 55, again, male, woman, female, et cetera. So I do think there is some scaling that will be happening, whether or not it's based on their readiness for train because of lack of sleep and symptoms, or whether or not it's based on their readiness to train based on just the various hits that their fitness have taken now over the course of their adult life or their orthopedic issues, that what they are doing at 55 might look very different than what they were doing at 30, but it's not because they're in menopause in a female.
Yeah.
Mm.
Degree, not kind, right? That's kind of that old that old phrase that comes back. Pat, I'm sorry, I got one more, and then I'll
Oh
let you
no,
do the
dude,
word in edgewise here.
do whatever you want,
Um,
man.
yeah, it's interesting because I guess what I'm really curious about, you see, with all of these types of life situations, like everybody goes through situations in life, man, woman,
Yep,
obviously there's
exactly.
different and specific situations, but my wife points out regularly that you've got to make a distinction in your mind when you're talking about people around
Mm,
how much time have they spent in dysfunction versus how much time have they spent taking care of themselves and being, generally
mhm,
responsible for their own health. And
mhm.
so, do these recommendations change in your view when you have somebody who's like they've been doing CrossFit for the interim, they've been taking care of themselves generally well, versus somebody who now finds themselves in a pretty bad state because they haven't been doing these things and they've got menopause on
Mhm.
top of that? Like, does your recommendation change for either of those populations, or like what would you say there?
Not on a broad level. It always comes back to the individual. And this is why I like the comparison to men and women. Like, there's so much stuff out there, not just menopause specific, but female specific. There's such a huge variety in just females that I'm still going to have to meet it to the individual female need. That I don't need to make female versus male recommendations. Like, I can just sort of say, okay, we're going to base it off of current capacity, goals, readiness to train, or something like that. And so I would say the same thing there. Like, there's going to be a huge variation of people who are taking them care of themselves and what their current capacity and what their goals are. And same with the audience that hasn't been taking care of themselves, that it's still going to kind of, after some broad guidelines of like, yeah, consistent exercise and intensity, we're then going to look at the individual level, male, female, how long they've, what kind of their current capacity is to then make the best decision that day. And so I think you're right, like degree, not kind. CrossFit's been saying it from the beginning. It's like we have this maybe broad workout for the day, and then we're going to meet the needs of the individual. And that's how we handle it best.
Yeah, right on.
So I think you made a good point that like the symptoms are very real. We're not discrediting anybody's symptoms,
Correct.
very
Correct.
real and also seems to be perfectly normal and natural, although probably profoundly annoying and uncomfortable. Like
To varying degrees.
all
And
those
just
things, right.
some women are going to have hell for 10 years and some women are like, "Oh, what was that?" So that's why it's like crazy.
And I guess in summary, like to kind of tie up these bullet points going by, the first one, like we said, depending upon who you're listening to, this exercise should be included, it should be excluded, it should be whatever. That seems to be more noise and not
Mhm.
actually signal, and either fear mongering or somebody's probably selling something on the side. I'm going to get you to be, scared of this. Come over to my secret program here because I know what I'm doing. That generally speaking, if you've been a lifter, you can still be a lifter. If you're a runner, you can
Correct.
still be a runner. If you like to,
Mhm.
get after it and, and push hard several times a week, you can go push hard several times a week. That generally speaking, for the broad population, that's a bunch of noise that, you know, again, you make the
100%.
best decision for you individually, but generally
Mhm.
speaking, that's just kind of falls under the nonsense category.
Totally. And again, there's things at 55 you might not be able to pull off that you did at 30. So we're all going to be smart about not going to try to pull our old one rep maxes.
We're still going
But
full send, EC. I don't know what you're talking about.
but yes, the
Lifetime
principles
PR or
remain.
nothing.
Yeah.
EC said I can hit my 30-year-old numbers. I'm going for it. Still with some common sense, but yes, there's nothing you have to change because of age per se or sex per
So
se.
that's the exercise bucket. And now if we keep
Yeah.
going down these buckets that I see
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
the next one was, okay, I'm exercising, but I'm going to avoid intensity. And
Mm.
so again, you're saying, individual versus general population, but generally speaking, that would be kind of a boogeyman as well for most people, most circumstances, most of the time, or is there something there?
No, they should definitely still be working hard with intensity for sure. There are some interesting studies that were looking at, hit training, which of course I don't want to say is CrossFit. We know that there's some differences there, but nevertheless, as close as we're probably going to get in a lot of studies to CrossFit. So high intensity interval training, sorry. And they were looking specifically at fat mass, including abdominal fat, which I'm sure you've heard belly fat and menopause are like some of the most common concerns.
You got one of my questions. You're looking at it. You must be
Oh,
looking at
I'm
it. Go ahead.
sure, like, it's gotta be coming, right?
Menopause
So,
causes weight gain, is what I've heard.
menopause
But
causes
okay.
weight gain. It doesn't, but nevertheless, but anyway, because of this fear for high intensity, these studies are really good because they were looking at fat mass overall as well as belly fat from HIIT training. And lo and behold, HIIT training actually helped improve body composition, including reducing fat at the stomach. So, when we look at this from controlled trials point of view, we find that intensity doesn't have these negative outcomes that social media is making you, feared or worried about. And it's in fact quite the opposite. It's the same stuff that we knew before. Like, why do not a lot of games athletes have belly fat? Because they're working out at high intensity, right? They have this a huge musculature to support and this huge caloric demand. So that value is still there regardless of the age.
And
And we
they're
Yeah.
find
and
that
they're
in the
counting
studies.
their almonds.
Right.
Well,
Right.
I just have to comment on intensity. I feel like it's just such a misused term
Mhm.
these days. Not these days, it's just consistently like forever and
Mhm.
probably will be forever. But I think the biggest factor there that people always miss the boat on is they equate intensity with maximum 100
Right.
effort. And that's
Correct.
not the case at all. I mean, there's a huge strike zone there.
Mhm.
And I think the biggest point that if people could take away and really internalize would be the most useful is that, look, when you compare an exercise program like CrossFit to, like, say, a bodybuilding program, and you look at the types of movements in loading schemes or whatever that are prioritized, that old, again, classic example of the air squat versus something like a hamstring curl machine. The air squat, although it is probably not that intense if you don't attack it with full bore, but it is objectively more intense due to the nature of the movement than
Mhm.
something like a hamstring curl. Now, if you knock out 10 air squats and then take a breather, I don't think anybody's fallen on the floor saying that was too much for the day. However, it is still objectively the more intense choice. And that's, I
Mhm.
think, where people have that breakdown. They think that
Mhm.
intensity just means I have to have totally blown up in the session and emptied the tank completely. And that's not the case. So, people out there, you gotta help fight the good fight. Intensity does not
Right.
mean I just laid myself on the floor on fire every single session. And if that were the gateway for results, I mean, I don't think any of us would see anything in the long term because you just can't keep it up. And anybody who's done this for a long time, they just personal experience, that like you just can't keep doing that, even just mentally. I mean, some people
Mm-hmm.
can't, they're freaks out there, sure, but for most of us, it's just like you learn that just through
Mm-hmm.
doing it. Harder to convey though.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, some of the ways that I've been describing it a lot in the last few years is more about like a progressive challenge or an intent with
Sure.
every workout. And I'm not trying to split hairs or come up with semantics, but the same idea of like trying to distinguish this idea that we're not talking about vomiting after every session. And instead, it's like you have to still kind of get after it. You still have to kind of see if you can run a little bit faster
Mhm.
because that's where the value is. Yeah.
Yeah.
If every time you go to the track to run a mile, your goal is to run 10 seconds slower and check back in with you 2 years later, things aren't going in a good direction. Like
Correct.
you gotta keep stressing the system. Doesn't mean you got to
Hmm.
PR every day, but let's stress the darn system.
Exactly.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions that if we were in person, you might strike me. So I'm glad that we're at a distance because these are probably some of your more annoying ones.
So you could just jump off the call, Pat. You
That's
never know.
right.
But
Click.
one of the things that I hear
Yes.
out there in internet land, the reels, Instagram reels are
I
just full of the
know.
greatest
And once you
information.
click on one,
Is that one of the reasons you might want to, stay away from these compound movements? I want to stay away from this crazy training with intensity, EC, is
mm,
because it's going to lead to something negative, which is an elevated level of cortisol.
mm,
Ever heard that?
cortisol. Justice for cortisol. We got to get some justice for
Justice for
cortisol.
cortisol.
I heard that on
Put
another
that on a
podcast,
shirt.
and I was like, "That's amazing."
Put that
Um,
on a shirt.
So
yeah,
somebody is going to have heard that, from their friend, from
they
their
will have.
neighbor, heaven forbid, from their healthcare provider, and they're going to not know if that's, the boogeyman or if it's true.
Yeah, yeah. So cortisol is known as the stress hormone, and I really think people would be better served if they started thinking about it as the mobilization hormone. So we think about
Mm,
insulin as the storage hormone. That's how we put away nutrients for later. Cortisol is our mobilization hormone. It's going to be how we mobilize nutrients. So, for example, when I'm fasting and I need nutrients because I haven't eaten in a while, cortisol will go up. And thank God for that, because it will mobilize those nutrients such that I will then have the nutrition to have a heartbeat, to have a core temperature, to be able to do the workout or whatever I'm doing. And same thing with high intensity. Cortisol will go up. And again, thank God for that, because I want to mobilize that energy reserve such that I have that energy ready to be able to run faster, do more pull-ups, etc. So, I loved hearing that phrase, justice for cortisol, because we see it as this boogeyman, when in reality, it's a very necessary hormone. And there are going to be times when we want it to go up because we need to mobilize that energy. It's classic that it goes up in the morning, for example, because guess what? We've just slept through the night. The day is starting. We're going to need some energy as we get up and
mm.
mobilize some of that stored nutrients. So, if you were to take some short term studies or look at somebody's cortisol levels, let's say after a short, intense workout, yeah, they could be elevated. But what we want to do, instead of looking at these mechanisms of is sort of somebody's cortisol up or down, is look at what happens to people's, let's say, performance or body composition instead of looking at their cortisol levels. And that's like what I was just saying to you about the studies with the HIIT training. When we look at what actually happens to outcomes in terms of strength or body composition, we see it improves with intensity, not gets worse, which means, yes, cortisol might go up, and that can oftentimes be a good thing because of the mobilization factor of it, and that it doesn't lead to these worse outcomes.
Yeah. Is it too much of a reduction to kind of view that the same way? Like, I think more and more people have a decent understanding of insulin insofar
Mhm.
as it's not a problem.
Mhm.
Your insulin elevated. It is a problem to have it chronically elevated.
Exactly.
Is it kind of like, is that too much of a reduction to apply that same logic to cortisol?
No, it's a great comparison. The one thing I will kind of put in there only because of social media fear mongering is people will think that doing high intensity training or being stressed out in modern life will lead to chronically elevated cortisol. Now, there
Got
is actually a condition that is chronically elevated cortisol called Cushing's disease. This, though, tends to be the result of actually taking chronic high dose steroids. So it's not coming from, I just have a busy life or I just did a lot of CrossFit workouts. So we have to be careful where you could develop hyperinsulinemia from overeating. You're not going to develop Cushing's from, let's say, CrossFit 5 times a week and having 4 kids.
it. Yeah, got it.
Do any of the various, I almost can't keep a straight face when I ask you this, do any of the various stages of menopause cause your hormones to be out of whack?
Out of whack.
Because when are they in whack? What's an
NWAC. I
in
know. I
whack
do like the
hormone?
NWAC.
Well, hey, to be charitable, maybe a rephrasing of that question is like, is there a legitimate hormonal change associated with menopause
Exactly.
or post-menopause?
Oh
There is,
gosh,
and that's exactly.
that's such a less amusing way to say it. Out of whack is so much more. Fine, fine. Go ahead, be
Fine.
professional. Be
I know we'll do the
professional.
professional route.
Okay.
No, there is, and that's exactly why the symptoms are happening. The
Right.
decrease in estrogen, largely, and then also progesterone, among others, is why women are having these symptoms that are very real. And again, I want to be clear that the symptoms are very real and can be very severe.
Oh, I live with them. They're real. I'm here to tell you, they are real. Okay, we're not
And so,
talking about a unicorn here.
but this is why women need to go to their MD or DO and tell them what their symptoms are and how severe they are so that they can get treatment for them. And this is where this is outside of my scope because I don't prescribe them, but hormone replacement therapy. It's not perfect or good for everybody based on their family history, risks, etc. But this can be a very real way that women can start handling the symptoms such that they can tackle diet and exercise. Because I think that's a big part of it. It's like I think sometimes women might be seeing some weight gain or whatever it is, and they go right to like, okay, now I need a new diet, I need to do macros, or I need to change my training. And instead, it's like, you haven't slept for 3 weeks. Like, we need to fix that. You know what I mean? Like, we need
Hmm.
to fix the symptoms so that you can tackle this diet and exercise thing. And anyway, back to the point, there are these hormonal shifts, but that's why hormone replacement therapy for some people has been really quite successful to try to manage that change.
Yeah, well, along the same road, is there, like from a dietary standpoint, have there been specific foods or supplements or
Mm.
anything like that that, like for somebody that does experience more severe symptoms, is there something dietarily that can be, at least mitigating to some of those symptoms?
Mm. Yeah. So one of the big supplements that has been researched, I would say the most for menopause is something called black cohosh. It's a perennial that's, I guess, in the buttercup family. And
Pat,
suppose
all about the Buttercup family.
The peanut butter cup family.
His amateur botany.
amateur botany. I know, got
A
to
lot, a
dabble
lot
in
of the
amateur
readers, a lot of
botany.
the listeners don't know about that, but anyway, sorry, I couldn't help myself.
um, there has been some research with black cohosh that suggests it can help with the vasomotor symptoms, which are the night sweats and the hot flashes. The problem with this supplement is everything that I probably ranted with you all last time or 2 times ago I was on the podcast about the supplement industry. It's very unregulated. So what we
Mm.
have is that when you go to buy something like black cohosh, which is this herb, you don't really know that what your pill contains actually is what the bottle says. And in fact, there could also be some contamination. So there was one study I was looking at that, the supplements are supposed to contain black cohosh, and 25% of them that they tested did not actually contain any black cohosh. And then
Nice.
there's
Okay.
also been
Yeah.
there's also been 50 acute liver injuries reported to NIH because of black cohosh. And NIH has sort of said, hey, we don't actually think it's the black cohosh. We think it's been contamination in those substances that have led to the liver injury. So this
Mm.
is where we really can't recommend that from a safety point of view because, and there also just, more research needs to be done, but because the supplement industry is so problematic. So
Yeah.
any of those vasomotor symptoms, they should really go to their MD. I will say from a diet perspective, I did see very early research, so we can't go, saying it's going to cure everything, that plant-based diets seem to be associated with improvement in vasomotor symptoms. So guess what? I get to plug my 800-gram challenge, focusing on those fruits and veggies. And the other thing, which you didn't ask about, but I do think it's relevant to this plant-forward diet, is one of the symptoms that women complain about in this time period is constipation. And it turns out that 95% of Americans, not just women, not just menopausal women, 95% of Americans are not getting enough fiber. So combined with the GI distress and the potential for some vasomotor improvement, doing something like a lot of fruits and veggies in your diet, of course, I'm going to be recommending that to this demographic.
Hmm.
Okay, this is maybe potentially. Well, first of all, just you already put a bow on that menopause does not cause weight gain, right? Is that your oversimplification, or is there more to unpack there?
Yeah, I would love to add on that if you don't mind,
Yeah,
just because
yeah.
that's the hot top. That's definitely the hot topic, if you will. It's more, I would think about it more as menopause often can be creating symptoms that are changing your diet and lifestyle habits. And the change in the diet and lifestyle habits are what's leading to the weight gain. The decrease in intensity because you haven't slept, because you feel like hell, the decrease or the change in the food habits because, again, you have anxiety or you haven't slept. That's what's leading to the weight gain. And there definitely has been multiple studies on this to show that it's really just the general weight gain we see with aging, including men again. I love the comparisons to men. Men gain weight typically at midlife as well. This is not just a
Mm-hmm.
female specific thing. And that it's really associated with the aging, not menopause.
Okay, interesting. Now, I'm going to put on maybe my tinfoil hat of conspiracy corner here. I just like, is it just me, or am I don't think that it is. Like I said, my wife and I will be watching TV at night, whatever show we happen to be watching, and it just seems like recently there's more advertisements based upon this demographic of women, what they're going on, and there's consult your physician, your doctor for this easy pharmaceutical solution that's going to make your life better because you don't have to live the way that you're living. Like you
Mhm,
said, there's obviously a wide range of people having a big difference in their symptoms, their experiences,
mhm,
or whatnot, of you know hormones being out of whack or
mhm.
whatever. And some of them, to a degree, that some sort of replacement therapy or intervention probably makes a lot of
Yes,
rational,
real sense.
logical, safe sense. But I tend to think that there's also a lot of people going down that road, probably unnecessary, before they have tried to adjust how they're eating. If the
Mhm,
overwhelming amount of, and I don't want to speak for the whole world, but most of the people in the United States are not living a high vid lifestyle. They're carrying around too much fat tissue. They are sedentary. They have poor cardiorespiratory health. They're
mhm,
weak. They're
mhm,
immobile. And then they get into this phase in life where they're going to be met with all these uncomfortable symptoms in a body that already wasn't doing well. That's probably a special slice of hell. And it's
mhm.
probably a little easier to go ask my doctor to give me a little something than
Mm.
try the 800-gram challenge because I
Right.
really would like to eat this other way. And I don't want to do thrusters. Are you kidding me?
Right.
And and whatnot. Is that kind of, have you experienced something like that of people most likely should probably start with the
Mm.
lifestyle intervention before, you know, talking about the advertisement they saw on TV, or I'm sure there's a fine line to tightrope walk there. Like if you get a real symptom, see your doctor and make sure it's taken care of. But
Exactly.
we
I would.
gotta get some people on a healthier path first as well, probably.
I agree, but just because I mean, you do too, but just from a nutrition perspective, working with people on habit change, the more I can have them feel good day to day, the more likely they're
Hmm.
going to change their diet. And so I just keep thinking about the idea that a lot of women don't get sleep in menopause. Like if I don't sleep, I know that I'm not the best person ever. So to
Sure.
have
Yeah.
that super disrupted, especially by if you have a lot of night sweats, hot flashes, like even if you don't have the basics of diet and exercise in place, why not go see your doctor and get that
Hmm.
handled? Because you are going to be more likely to want to go work out if you slept the night before. You are going to be more likely to grab the apple if you slept the night before. So that's where I see it doesn't have to be diet and exercise first. I'm very
Fair
outcome
enough.
focused. Like if I can get somebody to feel better overall and make changes, I don't really care what order it happens. And then I would say the same thing with GLP-1 drugs or really any pharmaceutical. To me, it could be a way that they actually are more interested in diet and exercise changes.
Something which would give them a higher level of compliance than they actually have a greater percentage of maybe sticking with the other changes that they're making, like you're saying, because you're
I
getting
just
more
always keep
sleep or
thinking
whatever it
about lack
happens
of
to
sleep. I
be.
mean, there's other symptoms that women have, anxiety, depression, yada, yada. But like to me, I just always think about back to sleep. Like if you've had a young child recently, like think about that lack of sleep and then just kind of multiply
Hmm.
that across years. It's like, can we correct that for somebody? Now, can we really make some headway elsewhere?
Yeah, that lack of sleep's a real linchpin. See what I did there, Pat?
I saw it, and it is a beast. My goodness, it is a beast.
I get
Uh,
I get a royalty check every time I mention linchpin on the show, so
That's
that's
hopefully
good.
right.
that's
That's
nailed
right.
that. But yeah, no, you see, I really appreciate the pragmatic approach there. My internal social commentary wants to say that, of course, people are going to reach for a
Mhm,
pharmaceutical intervention first. That's what they've been conditioned to do for years in many cases,
Hmm.
and they just don't like Pat. I don't think it runs as deep as the scenario you outlined. Oh, I don't want to do these other things. It's like they're not even on the radar for most
mhm,
people.
mhm,
I mean, it's like that alternative is not even a formulated thought. It's like, well, of course I do this. This is what I've done for 50
Yeah.
years now in this case.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just my comment there. But also, EC, can you expand? And maybe I'm leading the witness a little bit here, but like I said, I appreciate that pragmatic approach. You're like, hey, let's get you feeling good so that you can continue to build on these habits that will continue to make you feel good.
mhm.
Do you see that pharmacological intervention as that more of an intervention, or is it like
Mhm.
appropriate in some cases to get on a medication and stay on it? And maybe this is outside the scope because I know that's like a, doctor
Yeah,
question, but
at some point it is going to be outside of scope because I was just actually reading one of the doctors I follow on menopause stuff about long term and what's considered long term for hormone replacement therapy and when do people come off. But yeah, it definitely
yeah,
could be years for which somebody's on it. I'm always like I am a like diet and exercise person. I want more people eating fruits and vegetables. That's my whole mission. Like I would love it, but I also just know that these changes in a modern food environment are quite hard. So I'm just like whatever order of operations has to happen, okay. And maybe you will have a long-term pharmaceutical intervention. And I think it would be, oh, I don't know if I think it'd be good. I think people should try to keep staying outcome focused. Again, even I know there's a lot of natural is always better vibe within the greater CrossFit community. And I think sometimes it's good to just check and be like, is that actually better for the person overall? And this is, again, kind of my framework around GLP-1s or really any drug. It's like, if that person is able to overall have more healthy life and blood markers and fitness level because of whatever pharmaceutical intervention they're doing for however long, then it's probably worth whatever risk you're worried about with the pharmaceutical intervention. Do you know what I mean? Like there's
sure.
always trade-offs. And then we just have to kind of weigh that balance at the end and like, wow, this person actually has better fitness capacity, lower fasting glucose, better body comp, and they're staying on this drug that has relatively minor risks relative to their family history. It's worth it. It's worth it.
No, agreed. I mean, I just in my own circle up here where I live, there's several people I know that have been probably 100 pounds overweight for a very, very long time, and
Hmm.
for years have had no success. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like minimal success right back. Minimal. And now taking the GLP-1s, there's substantial weight loss and it's staying off. I mean, so like,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, for sure, it would have been great if something else worked, but it didn't,
Hmm.
and then that other course of action produced the outcome. I guess that was my general list that I had right there, but I know you just did a workshop on this specific topic. So what
Mm.
did we forget to address? Are there a couple
Mm.
of things out there that are people are gonna be like, I can't believe you guys didn't bring up A or B or whatever it happens to be.
Well, I got one
Yeah, go
right
for
out the
Sure.
it.
gate.
Yeah.
I think just listening to you, EC, you've brought up sleep as such a
Mm.
critical component over and over and over again. I think everybody knows that. And to your point, man, when you experience like a rough patch of sleep when you're not sleeping, it is so apparent to anybody that's gone through that it's like, yeah, this is critical to anybody in any stage of life. So do you have any general recommendations there from a dietary standpoint that's like, okay,
Mhm.
what are some basic strategies people can do to help support their sleep
Mhm.
through nutrition, if any, beyond the kind of regular recommendation?
Yeah, the regular recommendations seem to be best in terms of diet. And then in terms of supplements, there really aren't any supplements. I know some top podcasters have sleep stacks that the evidence I would say is minimal at best,
Dubious.
dubious. And I would even say melatonin, which perhaps is the most researched sleep supplement, doesn't even have a very clear efficacy. It's something like it improves sleep latency by like 8 minutes. That means time to fall asleep. So when you think about that in a clinical sense, you fall asleep 8 minutes faster. Am I really going to make that as a broad general recommendation for everybody? No, it's so minor.
Mm.
Um, so no, it's really basic. It seems to be eating some type of whole food based diet is associated with better sleep. But I think all of the general lifestyle habits, I mean, this is where I really lean into exercise and I love it. I think exercise is one of the best things for sleep because you get tired. It helps, burn off some of the energy and stress and all of that stuff. But then it would go back to more of the basic sleep hygiene stuff that I'm sure you guys have heard about, sleep in a cool room, keep it dark, keep it quiet, go to bed at the same time. I do think it's funny too. Like there's so many
Don't be scrolling Instagram right until the minute you
Right.
go to sleep.
Right. Don't have your phone like an inch from your
Yeah.
eye for 3 hours, right before you're trying to go to sleep. I do think it is interesting. So many parents follow or know the importance of a bedtime routine with their child. And then when they get to be an adult, they're like, oh, whatever, I'll just stay up all night, 3 nights a week, and I'll watch movies most of the time. And, it's just like, well, what happened to that routine? And of course, it doesn't have to be exactly like a child's, but if you are
Mhm.
somebody who has a difficult time sleeping, you should definitely think about a routine, going to bed at the same time, getting up at the same time, and even doing similar things like I turn off the phone an hour before I start doing light chores, I prep for the day. All of that stuff is like what sets the mind for I'm about to go to sleep. And that can be really effective for people.
Yeah, right on. I've got
Nice.
one more, Pat, and then
Oh,
I'd love to
dude.
circle around to EC and hear like what did we miss? What should we, be talking
Yeah.
about on this topic? But again, I'm all about application, and I'm a very lay person in all things, right? But I truly believe that with a little bit of knowledge, you can be pretty dangerous. So to kind of summarize, is your recommendation for people that are, going through this type of, season of life, is it mostly like, hey, stay the course? If you're already an
Yeah.
active person who's doing, quote unquote, the right things, is it really just like, hey, I know it could be pretty crappy at certain times, but it's truly like a stay the course type of thing?
Mhm.
Or is it, hey, yeah, there needs to be some more specific things that you consider in addition to the habits you've already built up?
No, I think it's stay the course, for sure. But relative to, I guess I'll keep saying their readiness to train, there may be things that they would want to lean into more. What do I mean by that? Let's just say that they aren't loving CrossFit training, or they can't feel like they can keep up with their old numbers. And so they're getting more frustrated by that. Maybe it's time to go on more of an endurance kick, or maybe they find some spin classes or something like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
strength is still awesome and they still should do it. But there's always something to, what can I keep the consistency and the mindset around this person's healthy behaviors? Like, that's what I'm kind of would want to tap into. Or maybe I actually just had a correspondence with somebody who was a little bit frustrated about their strength numbers have declined. At some age we are going to start declining, but where else can we engage in fitness that still makes this fun and interesting? Like, I'm into pickleball. Like, do we want to go start playing pickleball? Is there some other sport or something that we can look into that's going to keep this fun so that we still want to keep doing it, versus every day just feeling like I'm past this point in my life or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
stay the course, but I always lean into where can I get consistency and intensity and consistency, even if it means it's maybe not the most optimal split, optimal, of course, in quotes, as I know you
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah, stay in the physical culture in some way, shape, or form.
Totally, totally. And I know you guys work with super consistent athletes and stuff like that, but these stats that I say are so high that even if they're not as high, obviously within CrossFit Linchpin, they're trending more majority than not of like not hitting the cardio guidelines for CDC plus the strength guidelines. You know what I mean? So it's
Mm-hmm.
always like the more that we can do for consistency and effort within that consistency, I think is where the value is.
Yep, 100%. Um, is that good? You good, boss?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Did we miss anything, EC?
I'm going to bring up two, but again, this is just because it's top of mind from last week. One is a big concern around bone density.
Okay.
And this you might have seen kind of parlayed with the trend on social media with the weight vests, a lot of weight vest
Oh,
walking.
wait. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Well, I
Oh,
know the
actually, now that you
running is
mentioned that, I
cool.
have seen a couple. Okay.
So bone density definitely is a concern for women more so than men, in part because women tend to be smaller. So there's just less mass to start. And then also with the decline in estrogen, like bones are constantly being broken down and rebuilt. That's true, men, women, whatever. But with the decline in estrogen, the balance tends to be more towards breakdown than building. So having smaller bones to start and then the decline in estrogen, this is why osteoporosis, osteopenia is so high for women compared to men as they age. And so there is a concern over which exercise is best for bone density. And unfortunately, there seems to be some belief or viral teachings in social media that like weight vest walking is the way to go. Now, all exercise is better than none. And if you're not walking and you want to walk with a weight vest, okay, fine. But the best exercises for bone density are one, impact training, because that actual impact when you land from like a jump or a run, that's the stimulus to the bone of like, hey, you need to be more dense.
Hmm.
And the other one is resistance training, because the force that's on the bone when you are, contracting the muscle, that muscle force also provides that tension on the bone to say, hey, you need to be more dense. So when we look at the studies of what exercises are best for bone density, we're back to something that kind of looks like CrossFit.
Gotcha. Okay.
Aerobic plus some resistance training. That's where we want to be. So weight vest walking, unfortunately, there's a study out there, not unfortunately, but it just gets misconstrued, that talks about increased bone density with weight vests. What doesn't
Compared
often
to
get,
what?
well, that's what I was, hold on now, Boz.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
No, but the study was having them jump in their weight vests.
Mm.
So in viral
So was
social
it the
media
jumping?
land, it's just like, oh, they're wearing weight vests, there's more bone density. It's like, but they were jumping, like squat jumps in weight vests. Yes, that's impact training. That's not walking in a weight vest. So
Well, I would like to take this opportunity to announce the very not random Impact Menopause Weight Vest, and we will be creating a 8-week cycle that will help you guide you through that training. Okay.
I would
here's
like
like the difficult thing, and I know you guys know this, I'm preaching to the choir here, but like, of course, walking can be great, and walking with a weight vest can be great, and all exercise is better than none. And even if you do it brisk walking or go up and down hills or you challenge yourself, there's huge value there. But what I
sure.
see happening is that women, I don't know, at 45 are stopping to do back squats and put on the weight vest. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
that's where it's like, no, 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 that's what we're trying to avoid. I'm not saying that you can't have some fitness component with a weight vest. It's that we're not now just only doing weight vest walking and not high intensity training or whatever the fear is.
Yeah, and in the gradient of things, and I will say this with no studies backing me up whatsoever, but it's just obvious people putting a barbell on your back and going up and down is
Yeah.
going to be worlds ahead of a light weight that you barely feel that you keep on you for a long time. I just don't
Yes.
understand how that's not intuitive to people. It
There was this awesome study, a randomized control trial. Sorry, I have to say it. It's 8 months, postmenopausal women, 30 minutes twice a week. That's it. 30 minutes twice a week with resistance training, 4 exercises like back squat, press, dead. And I think they did something where they did like a jumping pull up and dropped for the impact.
Hmm.
Bone density increased. The control group was doing something like 10 to 15 light reps and mobility work. Bone density got worse. So we're talking about a program that was super minimal, 30 minutes twice a week at 80%, like 5x5, 80% one rep max. So yeah, that's where the magic is for sure.
So this just goes back to if you're eating well and you're engaged in physical culture, stay the course. Oh, what was the other topic that you had?
The other one, I'm probably gonna get voted off the island.
I
Creatine.
can't wait. Ah, okay, okay. I
So
heard 10 milligrams is the new 5.
it's the new five. So let me just preface this by I still think creatine is a worth a shot supplement. Out of all the supplements to try for performance, like sure, worth a shot. I've always said I don't think it's a panacea, worth a shot.
sure. There's nothing
There,
in it, right? I mean, that's the
yeah.
right.
There's anyway, yes, worth a
Yeah.
shot. There was a recent study. There's been a couple recent studies though about creatine and cognitive function, and this includes a very recent study with perimenopausal and postmenopausal women. And their conclusion on their abstract was like, yes, it improves cognitive function. First of all, it was like super short, very small study, like 30 some women, but nevertheless, it was like a 5% improvement in reaction time, meaning if it took you like a second to react to something like stopping your car, the people on creatine were able to stop their car in 0.95 seconds. So you have to like think about how clinically relevant this is day to day. Like my reaction time is 5% faster. Like I'm pressing the enter on my keyboard, like, like
Right, right.
5% faster. It's not really this clinically relevant, significant finding. Yet you could take something like that and say studies show that creatine improves cognitive function for postmenopausal women because yes, statistically significant, clinically not relevant.
It's a good headline.
It is. And so that definitely got a lot of press. There's been another one similar to that in the sense of yes, statistical significance actually relevant to somebody's day-to-day life. I don't think the evidence is there. So, and I think there's also some limitations when we look at creatine men versus women. I don't want to derail this podcast too much. I think it's worth a shot, but I think what I'm trying to do with a lot of this information is what I find with people is they're so overwhelmed with rules. I have to
Yep.
do this pre and post workout.
Yep.
I have to do this type of training. I have to do it at this time. I have to pair it with this food, and then I'm going to have to take this supplement. So what I try to do with people is be like, okay, yeah, creatine may be worth a shot, but let's not put it on the list of I have to do this today. We
Yep.
want the list of I have to do to be the shortest possible list.
Mm,
And
Yeah.
so
And to
that's
I
what
like
that
I'm trying
that.
point,
to do for people is be like, okay, interesting, interesting. Let's focus on where we know we're getting results.
it's really fascinating to see how quickly that changes in people's minds too, from like, hey, I've never done this particular thing, in this case creatine, right? How fast people will go from I've never experimented with that to a week later I have to do
Have to
this
do
every day or
it.
I'm doing it wrong. And you're like,
Right,
wait a minute, you
right.
didn't, this wasn't even on your radar a year ago. Like, what,
Exactly.
how come now it's such a critical thing? It's
That's a good point.
really
Yeah.
fascinating how fast that happens for people. I mean,
And
myself included. I'm not, I'm not immune to that sort of thing, but Yeah.
You're like, I
And
need this. You're like, you didn't
Right.
need it for 40 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
and maybe I'll get myself kicked off the island with
Mm.
this one, but this is my cynical New England take. But I feel like most people, right? They can go down that rabbit hole of the latest greatest thing that's going to fix everything that's going on with their strength and conditioning or their overall health. If you saw the other 250 decisions that they made during the day, you'd be like, really? You chose the creatine
Right,
instead of
right.
fixing all these other huge cracks you have in the dam? You fixed the
Totally.
creatine?
Totally.
So, like, focus on the big things that really move the needle. And like I said, if you want to play an experiment with some of these other things, great. But make sure the foundation of the house is like
100%.
well set.
Yes.
Um,
Can I end with a bit of a rant? Just a bit.
please.
Here we go. Let's hear it.
Again, this is old layperson Bosman here, but I really think, man, let me tell you what society needs, Pat and EC. And this is in jest, but I think it's also very serious. Like, man, people just need to enjoy things again. Like, whatever happened to, like, I just like going to the gym and blowing off some steam with my buddies and like trying to beat Pat, even if I know that's not going to happen. I don't care what the routine is necessarily. You know what I mean? Like, what I just, it's crazy to me. And maybe this is, a broader message of the incoming AI overthrow. But like every single thing in so many people's lives has been reduced to this like slave to routine or what you're supposed to do, that it's like, dude, you've kind of dehumanized your entire existence into just a series of steps, which is
And
insane.
remove the joy.
When you step back and you look at it objectively, it's like, is that really why you got into this for the first place? Is so you could follow a supplement regimen to the letter and to the minute? Like, that's insane. And again, like, hey, I'm not trying to discount that there are strategies that work for people and make them feel better and all that. Hey, I feel more cogent and dangerous when I'm taking creatine, and so I like taking creatine. You know what I mean? I don't know if it works or not, but I'm not freaked out when I don't get to take it for a couple of days.
Right.
Anyway, my point is that I don't know. I feel like a lot of people could do themselves a lot more of a favor to just do things purely for the enjoyment of them. And by the way, it benefits you even if you don't have the full extent of what that benefit is. And just
if I can twist that a little bit or turn that a little bit, because I see that a lot, especially, I built an app. I like apps in some sense. I think they're good, but I see that also the joy is a little bit taken away. Everyone's tracking everything as though we're going to do this research report, 10 years from now, what I did, in 2002 for a workout on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's just like every little minutia has to be tracked and optimized. And it's just like, no, it doesn't. You can just go enjoy a workout.
Yeah, or the hubris to believe that we even know what all that data means, and that we live in this age where, like, it's a foregone conclusion that if we can track it, we know exactly what to do, modify to make the outcome better. We don't. And that, you know what I mean? Like, thinking about so many of the studies you brought up, I'm like, why is reaction time on creatine even a metric that is the thing to study? Who cares? You know what I mean? It's, anyway. Rant over.
I know we can rant. I love it.
Well, maybe in closing, EC, first of all, thank you. But second of all, let people know, how can they find you?
Yeah. OptimizeMe Nutrition on Facebook and Instagram, and then the same website, OptimizeMeNutrition.com, and then the Consistency Project podcast.
Nice.
Yeah, highly recommend all of that. And as we say, every week at the end of this show, we want to hear from you. So hopefully this is a topic that resonates with a lot of people. Find this episode on the btwb YouTube channel. If you're currently going through this in life, have a loved one that is. We want to hear from you. Post your comments, your thoughts, your experiences, the whole 9 yards. What have you had, signal versus noise, the whole nine. If you have an idea for an upcoming show, guest, whatever it is, post that as well. So you can do that on the YouTube channel, or you can go to Instagram, the Very Not Random Instagram account, leave a public comment. If you want to be more discreet or secret, you can, hit Boz in the DMs, just send a direct message to the Very Not Random Instagram account. All those things make their way back to us and they help guide the show. So for EC and Adrian, I'm Pat Sherwood, and we will see you next time.